The noise, noise that my ankle made. So scared. And like when I sat up from falling, I looked down at the ankle that made that noise and my foot was just like dangling.
I'm pacing in front of my front yard. Our sidewalks in our subdivision are very uneven, so I'm not comfortable going out and walking around because I don't need my own like dangling ankle scandal. I'm good on that.
Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today I have something that's really interesting that I'm actually really excited to talk about. So today we're going to be talking about Rosie. So Rosie is someone that uploaded a video where she's talking about, let's put the ALR comparisons to bed for good. So if you're unfamiliar with who Rosie is, we actually did a couple videos with Rosie and about Rosie. So if you go here, this is the first video that kind of piqued my interest and what got us talking. And it says, I've unsubscribed from Hayes, fat activism, and the fat acceptance movement, right? And we kind of talked a little bit before this, but then we ended up doing an interview. So Rosie was someone that was into feederism, and, you know, she gained a lot of weight and she was bigger, and then she was more into the health at every size movement. But more recently, if you look at her page here, you can see that she's actually been uploading very, very frequently about losing weight, and she's been on Monjaro. She's been losing weight doing that, and it's been a whole journey. So she's been kind of chronicling this online, you know, weight loss story, which, you know, I talk about. I'm not against it, but I always tell people to caution it because there are people that are going to have something to say about everything that you do. Now, something that obviously Rosie has been dealing with is comparisons to Amberlynn Reid, and apparently this has been something that's been happening for a really long time, basically since she's been on the internet and been getting more popular. And so she kind of shares, you know, the history of why that's been happening, and so we're just gonna kind of jump on in and see what she has to say.
Hi friends, I want to talk about something that I am low-key kind of nervous to talk about on the vlog in this context. But I feel like I accidentally kind of set myself up for it. I didn't intend to. Because as of me filming this, I just had which video just went up? I just had my video about me getting laid off go up like a day or two ago. And the one before that is this weight loss channel video. And I mentioned Amberlynn Reid, and I made like a sidebar comment about like the dangling ankle, just like to be funny while I was walking. And I want to talk about this because there are a lot of new people finding my channel and may not know full history, may not like fully understand certain parts of it, and there's just been a sudden dramatic influx of comments about ALR. And people who have known about me for a little bit know that like I had a brief little like stint in the girl world verse not even a year ago, but like 7+ months ago, and I had like reactors reacting to me, and I made the decision at the time to kind of lean into the skid. And then I made a video that's I've now deleted, and I deleted it a while ago, about specifically foodie beauty, but that's not what this topic's about. But I realized after I made that video and like how some things were going and some decisions that I made, like by getting a little more too involved, a little too meta into girl world, that I needed to back the fuck off. And I did. Because prior to all of this, I spent a few years, like a couple years, watching Zachary Michael, the reactor. I found him through the 1,000-pound sister stuff, and then I fell down the Amberlynn rabbit hole. But that wasn't my first run-in with Amber on the internet.
It's funny because I'm sure there's a lot of people that probably don't actually, it's not that I'm sure, it's the fact is that there's a lot of people that know about Amberlynn that don't actually watch any of her content. They just watch like other people's content about Amberlynn, and I'm sure there's some people that watch just my Amberlynn videos. But it's definitely an interesting thing to hear from someone else saying in video.
Back in 2015, I've mentioned this a few different times in past videos, but I had a kind of a long-standing issue with r/fat people hate, which was a subreddit dedicated to hating on random fat people on the internet, and sometimes even in real life, just like taking pictures of random fat people and just fat shaming them.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with how kind of Reddit works, which maybe there's some people that don't really understand. So Reddit's its own website, which has different forums, and the different forums will have, they're called subreddits, right? And so this one was dedicated to not talking about certain things or anything. It was literally just like people would post a photo of a fat person, and then people would just make fun of them, right? So that subreddit actually ended up getting completely shut down and taken off of that website. Obviously, there's places that people go to do the same exact thing, but apparently on Reddit, they didn't want that there anymore, so they got rid of that. So it's not there anymore, but for the people that maybe aren't super familiar with how Reddit works, that's kind of how subreddits and Reddits work.
Finding random fat girls on the internet and fat shaming them. For whatever reason, they picked me as one of the darling children. There was a few of us. I'm still friends with a couple of them to this day. But they picked me as one of the darling children. I honestly think Amberlynn was not allowed to be talked about on that Reddit because she had her own subreddit, because she had her own, like, community. But I think one of the reasons why people liked picking on me so much is that I look like her. I know this. Like, facially we look different, but in most ways, especially like if when I had long hair, the comparisons were worse. And I'm so tired by it because it started in 2015. It started me being compared to her. Initially I was so confused because I was like, why are people so mean about this person? And I didn't know the full context of a lot of her stuff back then. And I learned about her because I was doing research on, I think the forum is called like lol.cow or something.
Yeah, lolcow. But it says here, I was researching to try to understand who these people were, why they were trying to dox me, and why I was being compared to these other people. So she basically just kind of trying to understand why are people, upset with me, and why am I being compared to XYZ person.
This was back in 2015. I had to do a lot of research. This is when I learned about Eugenia Cooney before she was mainstream, Venus Angelic, and basically just the internet's favorite LOL cows that they like to make fun of. And eventually the reform was made about me back when I was in the body positive spaces and I was on Instagram and everything. And I pretty much got the gist that people didn't really really didn't like her because she was fat and because she was a liar. That was back then. I got more context when I started watching Zachary Michael and getting a better understanding of her. And so for a while when I was watching those videos...
Again, it's funny hearing this because this is like the cycle that I think a lot of people go on. And it's talked about a lot, right? People find Amberlynn or content like that and they're like, I don't understand. It seems like people are just mean because this person's bigger, and then they start watching and they get invested, like, oh, they want to lose weight and they're trying, and then it feels like they keep saying they're trying but then nothing's happening, and then that person gets kind of jaded. I'm not saying this is exactly what happened to Rosie, but that person gets jaded and they're like, nothing's actually changing and I feel like I'm being lied to, and then they start watching these other people kind of talk about this and they're like, you know what, I kind of agree with what this person is saying, whether it's Zachary Michael or whatever other person is reacting to the content, and then they start to agree with what that person says, and then it's just like the quintessential kind of cycle that we've seen so many people go on when it comes to content like this.
I watched him because I really enjoyed his personality. I really liked him as a person. And there were times, though, in the beginning of me watching his videos, I would get annoyed. I would get mad because he would say things, and I would have my own reasons of feeling frustrated by that, or like, well, that you're not thinking of this, or da 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 da.
I mean, I don't even see anything wrong with that. I think that I personally think that if you're agreeing with everything someone says and like there's never anything that you disagree with, I don't want to say that that's wrong, but I would say like be careful with that, right? Like it's okay to maybe agree with most of what someone says, but maybe there's certain things that you don't agree with, and that I don't think that that's wrong. I think that that's completely normal.
And as time went on and I kept watching, this was, I think I probably started watching him around 2020, 2021 for sure. I definitely know for sure 2021. And I don't think, if I hadn't started watching Zachary Michael, I wouldn't be this far along in my health journey. If I hadn't learned about some of my own internalized issues and delusions through his reactions to Amberlynn and how she was behaving online during those times, and his commentary on her issues with her food issues that are very similar to my food issues, I don't think I would have been able to take the time, look inward, reflect, and realize that I had shit to change.
That's really interesting because that's something that I talk about when I talk about whatever video it is. It's like, I understand that the stuff that I'm saying in this video might not reach the person that this video is about, right? Whether it's Amberlynn or whoever, right? Whoever it ends up being in the video. But I always hope that someone watching can hear what I'm saying and maybe take pieces. Obviously, they're not going to have the same exact problems that XYZ person is going to have that I'm talking about. But maybe there are certain things, certain ideas, certain, you know, helpful tips or habits that they see that maybe I bring up for this person, XYZ person that I'm talking about, that they can internalize and be like, you know what, I think that would actually work for me. And so it's nice to hear that someone at least has watched content about another person and they've been able to identify ideas and things that are going on in their life and maybe make a change, right? It's just good to hear, I guess. And then she wrote on screen here, I know that I'm covering part of it up, but it says, there are a lot of things that happened that helped me get to the point in my own journey to finally have sustainable success. And his reactions were a huge part of that. It took a couple years to really stick and make me see some of the errors of my ways.
And so I'm just going to keep it so real. This is literally no hate to Amber because, like, I know she knows who I am. She's told me she's watched my videos and that she liked them a while ago. And I responded by telling her I'm a Zachary Michael fan, and we didn't talk much after that. That's that on that. And I have my own opinions of her as a person and from watching her through Zachary Michael. But at the end of the day, I wrote what's best for her health and her life and for her to treat people the way they deserve to be treated and several other things. But
I agree.
being compared to her constantly is exhausting.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it was one of the main reasons I realized that I needed to just back the fuck off of girl world shit. I do the best that I can to make moves in life, in not just on the internet, but in life, that align with me being like the best version of who I am. I can't help it that, frankly, Amberlynn and I, not only do we look alike, we have some overlap in like food issues. We're both Southern. We're 1 year apart. Our birthdays are barely a month apart. Like, the similarities exist, and I know it. And I just want to say this piece here and now. For anyone that does watch me and sees this stuff, I'm not going to be able to escape the ALR comparison, and I know that.
Yeah.
But it's really frustrating because I see it all the time in my comments that people will look at me and they literally assume I'm a liar. I'm all these things, all this archetype of who Amberlynn is, and it's literally something I've had to deal with for years when I don't have a sordid history of lying to people, period. And I've worked full time for like 10 years. I drive. I've been in therapy off and on actively for 12 plus years. I'm almost 100 pounds down. There's literally so much about me that is not the same, and just people literally look at my body and assume I'm exactly like this, like, infamous person on the internet.
So I think at the end of the day, like, those things are going to happen, and I'm going to kind of cut the reaction there because a lot of it's just kind of similar stuff that I don't think there's really any more reason to go on. But I do want to say, like, Rosie, because I know that you watch these, like, at the end of the day, and I know you kind of say this later in the video as well, but at the end of the day, like, people are going to make those assumptions and they're going to make those comparisons. And I understand that it might not be favorable to you. You might not love seeing those things. But at the end of the day, like, I would try my best, and I understand I'm not in your position, so I don't want to say I understand completely. But if I were, I would try my best to see it as a blessing in a way, right? Like, you can prove people wrong. Like, this is your chance to be like, you know, you might think that this is what I am, but I'm not, right? And like, as we've seen, if we go through your channel, like, you are consistently uploading and you are talking about your weight loss. You're talking about the hard parts. You're showing yourself doing the things that you need to do. You are being consistent, and like, that's all that you can do. So at the end of the day, like, yes, of course, there are going to be people that are going to have their opinions that they made up on the spot without seeing you, without watching your content. That's the internet. It really, really is. And like, so my advice to you is, one, like, this is going to be something you're going to be dealing with by posting weight loss content on the internet. People are just going to compare you to whoever and whenever, and they're going to make assumptions, and they're going to tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do. It is what it is, right? But at the end of the day, like, the way I see it is, while I understand it's not preferable for those comparisons, you do have a chance to prove people wrong, and I think that that's always kind of a good thing. You can show people that maybe you look like this person, but you are not this person. But I just kind of wanted to share that video. I thought that it was an interesting kind of comparison, and you know, it's one of those things when I talk about, like, if you want to post your weight loss story on the internet, you're gonna have to deal with XYZ thing, and this is just another one of those things that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I would love to know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. If you want to check out Rosie's channel, I will link it down in the description down below. If you want to show her some support, I'm sure she would appreciate that, and I'm always hoping the best for people that are trying to, you know, change their life, and I know that she is on that journey right now. And so if you guys want to go do that, make sure you go give her some support, give her some comments and some thumbs up. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.